Hello and welcome. My name is Tom Wilson. I'm the author of Next Stage, and welcome to session 4 of our series, How to Create the Life You Want. As you know, each of the sessions is dealing with a particular question that we discussed in the overview in our first session. As people enter the stage of life that is defined more by who they are than what they do, it's important for us to look at the changes that are happening around us, within us, and changes that you want to be making in order to create the life you want. So today's session is going to focus on a very important and very personal aspect, and that is relationships. We'll talk some about what that means, and I've got an exercise for you to look at and some things to help you look at what you need to look at in terms of your relationships with other people. Because one thing is really clear, and by lots of people that I've interviewed and the research I've done, as you enter this stage, it's no longer defined by your work and your work community, or by your family and the kids that used to be in your house, is that things are going to change about relationships. You'll be spending much more time at home if you're married or with someone, with that spouse or that significant other. And this is an important time to look at those relationships and say what must look at to improve them or to retain them because they're how important they are. Okay, session 4, relationships. As we discussed in the previous sessions, there are 5 questions that we're working through in this series. Each one is both simple but also profound. Today's session is answering the question, who do you want to live with? Now, it may sound like you're talking about a primary relationship, but in reality, many things change around the nature of your relationships and the community that you used to be part of. But you may not, you may no longer be part of that community. So you need to think about those relationships and who you're going to be living with. I'll highlight some interesting research and some exercises, and then we'll talk about the other sessions later. One element that is clear that as you prepare for this entering or you're living in this reinventing stage of life is that your relationships will change. It could be that you had a great group of friends that you worked with, but now on Tuesday afternoon, you are alone, or your life is full of family and friends. While you may or may not seek much change, you may want to address some issues that are becoming important with you, your family, and your friends. There's some wonderful research called the Dunbar Principle that indicates that as people, we can manage about 150 relationships, but they're not all the same. As indicated by this list here, is that they actually fall into different categories. A health perspective is to see these relationships really as a series of concentric circles, starting with your core. And I'll spend some time on this subject in a minute. But some of what you think about those that are most core, most important to you, or closer to you, and those who then represent your friends and your community. The first is that core group. And what we talk about it as life partners. These are people who know you very well and are there for you, and you are there for them. They are core to you. You talk to them frequently, and you've shared many important things in your life and your lives together. Next, there's a group that you may think of as your family. While they are important to you, they're not quite core. They are your family, or they're like your family. They may not actually be your family members, but they act like it. And some of your family members may not actually be at this level because of a variety of reasons. They may be more distant. The next is you have a series of close friends. Now, these are people you hang out with, that you do things together. You celebrate major events and milestones, and you can count on them as your friends. You may not know them as family or as well as you know the others, but they are really important to you, and they are basically your friends. And the next is, keeping our series, the next tier, if you will, are those who compose your community. And these are people where you share a mutual interest or set of activities. You may golf together, be in church together, play tennis, be in part of a movie club or a book club or things of that nature. They're in your community. You belong together. When you see each other, you're glad to see them. Obviously, you know their name, but you really don't know that much about them. You may not have met their significant other. You may not know the names of their children, but they're in your community. And these are people who you like to see. You have a lot of things that you share in interest, but they're your community. And finally, there's the people who you may consider your network. And these are people you know, and they know you, but you really don't know much about them. You really may not know exactly where they work or what they do or where they are in their life or what their history has been, but they're people you know, and they're not quite in your community, but they're people that you know in different sectors. And there may be groups of people who fall into these categories of 4 and 5, and you may be able to identify some of them, but they form a constellation of relationships around you. Now let's consider what it means to build relationships. What is it that creates relationships? You'll see that some are stronger than others, and that it takes time to really know someone who is in your array of relationships. I found it helpful to think about 3 ways in which relationships are strengthened or potentially weakened. Where were you on September 11th, 2001? Who were you with? Do you remember their names? Do you remember what you were doing? People who go through a deep, profound experience often have very unique relationships. This occurs in business settings. This occurs a lot in the military, and this occurs in life. In other words, you have been through some experiences together that creates a bond with you and other people. It takes time to build these shared experiences to create this level of friendships. But over time, as you create more and more shared experiences, the person becomes a closer confidant to you. And I'm thinking about this particular is that, we're all going through this pandemic. And what does it feel like in terms of the people who you share experiences with going through this particular unique time of a pandemic? The depth of your relationship is often a function of the differences between your expectations and your experience. Do they like you as much as you like them? Is it more or is it less? For people we know well, we have a history of expectations and experiences. Blended together, they form a bond, something that you can trust or maybe not trust about this friendship. Is when you reach out, will they be there or will they be distracted by something else? Your expectations versus your experiences often provides the roots for that relationship. And if you have an experience with someone that's usually different from what you expected, it might lead you to change your expectations and therefore think of the person as maybe not the person that you initially thought. Or maybe somebody exceeded your expectations. They did something special and they always were there for you in a unique way. And you just need to recognize that, hey, maybe those people are more special than I thought originally. So through these experiences, relationships are based on trust, understanding, and appreciation for what the other person holds for you and what you hold for them. Relationships are hard, but we need them. They're often worth more than the effort. I love a quote from Eleanor Roosevelt. She said, "Since you get more joy out of giving joy to others, you should put a good deal of thought into the happiness that you are able to give." So we all know instinctively that relationships matter. And this is supported by a lot of research. In fact, positive relationships have been found to be if perhaps not the critical ingredient into both longevity and to the quality of one's life. The Harvard Women's Health Watch found that people who lack strong relationships are more likely to die earlier than those who have strong relationships. This is by 50% sense of higher risk. Someone was referred to this as like smoking 2 to 3 packs of cigarettes a day. It significantly increases your sense of your chance of premature death if you don't have a good, strong, solid set of relationships. But what's interesting is that men who are in primary relationships live longer and happier than men who are single. But this phenomenon is not true for women. Women who have a group of sisters where they have frequent communications, significant amount of support, this did correlate well with a woman's longevity and happiness. So let's look back at this for a second. So men who have a primary relationship tend to live longer than those who are single. But women who are in primary relationships, that did not correlate, according to the research, to longevity. What did correlate well is when women had a group of sisters. So you can think about it to kind of illustrate this a little bit, is that, let's say one day you discovered a lump on your body somewhere. Now, if you're a single man, you'd probably think to yourself, I'll talk to the doctor about this the next time I see him. A married man might say, hey, honey, look at this. And her response or his response will be, I'll take you to the doctor, or I take you to the doctor. In other words, that married man is going to be taken to the doctor by that spouse. A woman's husband would say, gee, honey, you should have someone look at that. But a woman's sisters would say, we're taking you to the doctor now. So let's look with these concepts at what your relationships look like. Now, you remember the different types of relationships that we discussed earlier. So think of them now, as I said earlier, think of it as an array, a series of concentric circles that expand out. So this includes your primary relationship as well as a series of connections that compose your world. A helpful perspective is to see this group as a series, as shown here, these circles, starting with your core to your family and family alike, close friends, etc. Here's the question for you. Here's the exercise for you. Where are the people in your life within these circles of relationships? Take a moment now. I'm going to ask you to take a moment now and think about this. Think about the people who you live with, and where are they in your this series of relationships? Where would you place certain people in your life? And as you take the time to do this exercise and think about where people are, the more important question, after you sort of mapped out these relationships, is to sit back and look at this and say, how do you feel about this? How do you feel that it works for you? One of the people in a seminar that I taught recently, his name was Bill. He said this was one of his most important exercises that we did in our seminar together. And he said the reason why is that he discovered that his sister, who lives perhaps a mile or so from him, that they have not seen each other for about 10 years. And Bill said that as he thought about it, he said, that's no longer acceptable to me. It doesn't mean that this is going to be easy. Obviously, this situation didn't get there just because of just inconvenience. There are clearly some underlying issues that need to be addressed. But Bill thought it was important to his life and to what he's about is to see about bringing her closer into his center of his life. Now, he may not be fully successful, but he clearly wants to do the effort. So where are the gaps that need closing in your life? Where are the communities that need building? Where are the individuals that you go to and can go to? What needs to change in your world of relationships? So when you have considered your relationships, you may have identified certain ones that need to change, or a category of people where you want to change, such as you want to rebuild a community since you're no longer with the people that you used to work with. Here's a worksheet that may help you do this task. It asks you to address 5 questions. First of all, once you've identified what relationships do you want to change? This could be a primary relationship, a relative, a friend, a community, a group you're with. First of all, identify who are you talking about? What are the relationships that you want to change? The next question is why? Why does this need to change? What is it about today's relationship is not the way you want? What you need to do? And we'll talk about what in a minute, but here just identify why is this important to be done? The third question is, what do you want to change? In other words, what do you want the relationship to change from A to B? What needs to be different? You want it to change from what to what. So describe for that relationship, what is it that you need to see happen differently? Then I want to ask you a question. How likely is this change to be? You need to understand how challenging will this change be. For Bill, it's going to be difficult, but there's a sense of importance that he knows what that's about. He knows what it is what the challenge was. So understanding what needs to be different and how challenging or difficult it may be is very important to understand. This may be complicated, but it will be worth the effort to understand what it is that you're getting into before you move forward. And finally, what can you do to start the process of change? Most relationships change. Most relationships change when a person starts to want to see some things different and do some things differently. So part of this challenge, of this assignment, is that this is up to you. What is it that you want to do that will help to make this relationship different? How important is it to find, and it may be, by the way, important for you to find help here. In other words, there are therapists or other people who could help you work through this particular issue or these issues associated with this relationship. But you put this relationship on this worksheet is clearly important. You understand why, understand what needs to change, understand the challenges, and then understand what you want to do. In summary, relationships matter. Look at yours. Which ones need to be strengthened, developed, or just let go? It's important to have healthy relationships all around you. So that concludes our session 4 about relationships. As I said, here's an outline of the things that we're covering as we go through our journey together. And these are the questions. We started with our overview, and we're going to end with building your master plan and defining our next steps. As you can probably see at this point, each of these sessions asks you to do an activity. Now, some cases I may give you some time during this session, or it's really more important for you to do it between one session and the next, when you have some time to think and to reflect and make notes to yourself. And that's really important to really get the most value from this time that you're spending on this this series. And so we'll work through each of these factors, look at your own situation. Some of them are going to be very important, and some, it's okay. The things are really okay. And that's wonderful too. And then in session 7, will allow us to begin building that plan that will help you move to a new place. I hope you found this session important because relationships are important. Some people need to see make significant changes in the relationship they have in a whole different way. And others, are really in a very good shape. And what I find, if you're feeling good as you go through this and you really don't know or see many things that you really need major changes, maybe a little help here and there, is that you can appreciate what you have because appreciating your relationships is a very important aspect of building that strength to make it through this next stage of your life. Because you know why? As we said earlier, relationships matter. Relationships have a big bearing in terms of your health. And that reminds me, our next session will focus specifically on how do you stay healthy. There'll be some ideas and share with you some research and a few little exercises for you to work as well. So I hope you're enjoying these sessions, and hope you enjoyed this session as well. And it's my pleasure really to share these with you and to give you the sense of what's important here as we go through this journey together. I've been on this journey for a while, and I share your concerns and questions. If you'd like, you can email me, and there'll be information at the very front of the series. You can find it on the website. You go to mynextstage.org. You find my website, and there's some more resources and information, and there's always my book. So I hope you have a very rich and fulfilling relationship-based day today. Go out and find some love to hug. Thank you, and you have a great day.